I'm the only one waiting. Can you hear me over the music this time? Well, I'm so glad. I want to make sure I actually turn the mic on this time. Great. That's great. That's awesome. You'll find that I chuckle through life anyway. At pretty much everything. That's why you'll never see me not have a smile. Very rare. Very rare. How are you all this evening? It's currently -4 here in Akron, Ohio. The wind is howling outside, and I'm so glad to be in here sipping my cup of hot cider. You're freezing. You know what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead and jump right to the opener so I can get my face on there for you guys. So I'll see you on the other side of this thing. Welcome to the Live Loving Livestream with John Davis. Well, there you are. I'm so good to see you over there, out there on in the world. Thank you guys for being here. It's lovely to have a place to visit with you guys. Now, before the holidays, since tomorrow starts the crazy days of the holidays. I've got hot coffee and I'm making Rice Krispie treats for my son. There you go. Bridget, where are you in the world? Let me know where you are in the world, guys, so I can... Detroit, that's not that far away, actually. Detroit's only a couple hours from my house. I live in Akron, Ohio. PA, where in PA? So, Southern Maryland. What part of Southern Maryland? Philly, okay. So I'm originally from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. You probably know it well. Grand Rapids, Michigan. You're close. Waldorf. I've been to Waldorf many times. I used to be one of the headlining acts at the Maryland Renaissance Festival in Annapolis, Crownsville, actually. But look, hello, Omaha. Welcome, Lori. Do I know what I look like as John the Beloved? You know, it's a very interesting question. Do I know what I look like as John of old? What I remember of John of old was him having. I don't necessarily know what the face really looked like because I was seeing it from inside looking out. But I was very, very, very lean. Like I was like obviously had been someone who had worked very hard, and was you could see every muscle, just because there was no fat on the body, and I definitely had a beard. My hair that I remember, my hair was only about to my shoulder, but that's just a sense of that. I really don't have a real big sense of the actual physical appearance. I like to think that it was kind of like a better looking version of me, but I don't know. Hello there, spirit. Maybe do it. California. Nothing about the Northeast. Yeah, but like, go back to your question, Teresa. I really don't have a real. I have glimpses of my physicality because could see my body, but I don't necessarily know what my face looked like. And once again, let me reiterate. I don't necessarily know what reincarnation is, or whether I'm just tapping into memories of something, or whether I was John of old. All I know now is that I'm John Davis, and John Davis has these memories. But I'm not really not vain enough to say that I was John the Beloved. I have those memories, but I don't have. I have a. I know that right now I live in this present moment, and it's the only moment that really matters. It doesn't matter who anybody was; it only matters who they are now and what they're doing now. And so, I like to stay in this time frame, the I am moment, the God moment, and I like to be in this time frame and draw from that time frame. But it is very close and it's very personal to me, and sometimes it gets conflated in my own language because of the fact that when I have those regressive moments, it's very real. It's visceral. I can feel the air and smell the wind, and it's really a very, very visceral experience. Niles, Michigan. You guys are all up here. Yeah, you guys are as cold as we are over here. Michigander. Your daughter's absolutely right. It is now that matters, because right now is the only moment any one of us has thought, word, and deed. It's the only moment that anything can happen. The past is just a collection of memories, and the future is a completely malleable substance that's moving towards you, that's formed around your belief. And so it really comes down to you staying in the present and making sure the next moment looks beautiful. Because when you start stacking these beautiful present moments, they drop into your subconscious mind. And then your past starts being a beautiful life. And then you start habitually creating from that past experience, as opposed to a negative or a victim-based past experience. Supposed to be 1 degree there in Massachusetts. Yeah, it's definitely a chilly night. I'm sitting here and I can hear the wind, and I ran over and I got my hot apple cider with a cinnamon stick down there in the bottom of it, and it's sitting on my little mug heater over here. So, guys, it's Christmas, and there's a lot of history around this holiday that is not really that much about Jeshua as much as it is about the pagan holidays, the winter solstice. Because the reason this date has been chosen is because Constantine chose it as a putting it near the pagan holidays so he could convert more pagans. Doesn't really matter what day of the year it is. What matters is that beautiful people in the world, Jeshua, Buddha, Krishna, existed. Moses probably as well. They existed. They did loving, caring things, and it's a matter of remembering that these extraordinary individuals did extraordinary things. And for those of you who don't study any of those or follow any of those religions, happy Festivus. Festivus for the rest of us. But really, the holidays can get very stressful for people, because the stresses of the holidays are based around dealing with conditional love of family a lot of times, or we don't like being around our family or the families who've done things in our past that have make us feel good. Hello, cold Iowa, Larry Adams. And so it's a matter of realizing that the attachment you have to past experiences anchored to the holiday is what makes the holiday a tough time. I hear that all the time. It's a tough holidays are tough. Well, holidays are only tough because somehow love was either taken from you or was exposed to be very conditional during the holiday. And there's an anchor to it, and there's a belief to it. And as I just said a few moments ago, it's right now, it's the only moment you have. It's the present moment. And all of that stuff that makes you think that holidays might be tough really is just past experience. And Joshua would say, be born again, which means set that past experience down and start something new. Choose to make the holiday great. We have a lovely group, core group in our membership group. And one of them said something really beautiful to me the other day. She says, this is the first holiday that I'm really looking forward to. And she said, holidays are always so hard and so, the struggle. And, I've let that go, and I'm really looking forward to this holiday. I said, yeah, as long as you're staying in this space, in your present moment, and making your present moment beautiful, no matter what anybody else says or does, because they have their own triggers. It's a matter of not getting triggered by them. It's a matter of staying in your center of love, and your center of joy, and your center of the meaning of all this, gathering for the holidays. Or not, sometimes it's better just to have the time off. My son is going to his grandfather's house on his mother's side, and he'll be back here 2 days after Christmas. and I have to tell you, I love and adore my son. I can't wait to see him again. But the next 2 days, I'm not getting out of my bathrobe or my slippers. Right? I'm going to have a couple days where I'm going to lounge around. And I'm going to watch It's a Wonderful Life and White Christmas and Miracle on 34th Street and A Christmas Story. And I'm going to do all the crazy holiday movie watching, and I'm just going to lounge around. And you know what else I'm not going to do? I'm not going to make a video, because I already made them all. They're made all the way out to January 6th right now. So I'm going to take the time, and I'm going to give myself that time, because that feels good to me. That feels great to me. And the idea of doing it on a day where that's been set aside to celebrate a guy that I have memories of, a guy that is beautiful and loving and caring, and celebrating that the way he was and the way he is. And, that to me is me being comfortable and relaxed and doing pretty much nothing, makes me feel good. And that feeling is the feeling that he would give me if he was around. Be excited to talk to him, right? But it's a matter of me choosing to think that the holidays are a great thing for me. So make sure you're doing that as well. So what questions do you guys have for me, or topics you want me to talk about? Can be questions or topics, either one. And let's dive into some of this stuff while I have you for the next hour here. Let's see if I got anything over here. Good to see you, Kent. I really haven't gotten. I myself don't use emojis very often. It's because I guess I'm still just one of those old guys who wishes he still had a flip phone. Do I like board games? I did when I was younger. Oh, thank you, Lee. Thank you very much. That's very, very helpful. When I did when I was younger, I liked backgammon a lot. I played a lot of backgammon when I was young. What else did we play? When I was very young, of course, we played Monopoly, and we played Candyland when I was really, really young. We had all those. Yeah. Hey, Kate, how are you? Hey, guys, this is Kate, Epic Kate down here. Make sure you go check out her channel and the interview that we did for her channel. She interviewed me on her channel, so go over and make sure you check that out. So, say, what do you think Jesus would think of our world today? Well, I don't really know how. Oh, Kate had a baby. Congratulations, Kate. That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. I hope you're taking time off your channel then. So she might not be on her channel for a while. um, what would Jesus think of our world today? I would think. This would be supposition. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for what he would think, but I would think that he would think that not much has changed. That we all have our fears and our anxieties, and they manifest in different ways. And there's still authoritarians. There's still struggles in the world. But I think he also would think that so many more people are close to stepping into their divinity, because there has been a massive shift in the past 20 years, and it's incredible to watch. When I talk to people in my private sessions, it's incredible to watch how in the past they would always talk about, the next dogma, the next ritual, the next 5D and all that stuff, and now they're really talking about, how do I connect? How do I find that space within? How do I move into the place of creating a beautiful life and a beautiful experience? And to me, it's so empowering. And Jeshua, I think he would be thrilled to see that. And like I said, in the past 20 years, it's very, 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 very evident. So now it is. So yeah, you already did the pushing, Kate. You don't need to push anymore. So yeah, it's so good, so good. Yeah, Jeshua, it's so interesting. Tomorrow being Christmas Eve, and then the next day being Christmas. He was such a funny guy, nice guy, great guy, and I wish people had some of the memories that I do, because the choirs didn't sing when he came around, and the light shows didn't happen. He just was the embodiment of love, and he just and every so often he wasn't. Every so often he'd get angry or frustrated, but what he taught was our own connection to the divine, and what he had discovered was his own divinity. And he's like, hey, take heart. Take heart. I've overcome the world, which means you can too. So, what other questions do we have? Did that answer your question about what Jeshua would think about the world? I hope so. I'm going to take a quick sip of my hot apple cider. Keep my throat clear. So Kate, what did you name the baby? I think you need to share. And where is it you're living, Kate? I forget. I know it's overseas. Are we still on? Chat board's not seeming to move too much. Oh, well, thank you, Miss BB. Oh, no, you're amazing. You're amazing, and that's the key of Jeshua, is that you are amazing. World is changing. When I see extreme groups, I see people who are afraid of the changing world. I completely agree with you. There's a Socrates quote: when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. And I think that they feel they're losing grip, and they've got nothing more to say. And so they yell and they call names and they slander because they've got nothing more to say. And that's what I see happening in the world right now. We're in the growing pains of a huge transition. What's my favorite memory of Jeshua? That is a question I've never been asked, and I love it. I love it. My favorite memory of Joshua was actually sitting on the side of the roads, eating figs, like literally, literally hanging out on the side of the road, eating figs, and there was a tree kind of hanging out on over the road, and he was sitting there, and we're just laughing, and Ishti, his wife, Ishti means wife, but Mary Magdalene, were there, and she's like resting her head on him, and they're laughing out loud, uncontrollably. There was just something funny really going on. I don't even remember what it was that was funny, but the moment was so free, so loose, so joyful, so loving, and there was not a thought in the world about fear, and it was just such a great, easy moment. Because there were a lot of moments that were stressful for moving around and going into towns that had very big religious thoughts that he was definitely not in alignment with, shall we say. Jump back over. Island in Sweden. I am working with a group of people from Sweden right now, from the Hestons Company. I'm doing a lot of private readings for them right now. It's pretty amazing, the groups that I'm talking to. Nice. Stellan. Stellan means peaceful one. Love that. Love that. What a great choice of name. Hello, Sugar's mama. Wow, this I've often had this experience where people come in with the same thought or the same question, like in groups. Like I'll get like 5 or 6 people who ask the same question, like in the course of a day, and it's like very interesting. I think it's interesting. This is the second one tonight who's asked what I look like back in the day, and earlier on I kind of explained that I don't really know what my face looked like, but I was very lean, and I like to think that I was a better looking younger man, but than I was. But very lean, very strong, very had hair down to about the shoulder. I kind of feel like that's true. Bearded, but not a lot of other real detail. How many past lives do you remember? That's a great question. I'm the majority of my memories are the life with Jeshua. But I've had glimpses of things, and I don't know what the glimpses mean really. When I walked into Petra in Jordan, Petra is where Indiana Jones found the Holy Grail, right? In the armory building of Petra. And when I walked into Petra, in the movie he rides out that canyon, that little crevice in the mountainside, and that is how you get to Petra. You walk down that crevice and you come in, opens up into the armory building. And when I walked out into that courtyard, I had this weird sensation of looking down from the top of one of the pillars, and like I was up there carving it. So that was a very visceral experience that I had there. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much. It's very very helpful. The other thing about past lives is when I did, I've always had an affinity for Renaissance festivals, and specifically Elizabethan. And it was really funny because most of the fairs that I did were Tudor era, which is an entirely different style of costume. But I always had to have an Elizabethan costume. I always made Elizabethan costumes, made all my own costumes. And I had all the poofy jackets and the doublets and the trunk hose and the thigh high boots and I did the whole thing. And I always had an affinity for that time period. Well, when the festival hired 2 fight directors who were 2 of the top fight directors in the world, Brad Waller and Payson Burt, I went down and I was cast in the combat chess match where I was going to do sword fights. And they put a sword in my hand, and I just knew how to use the sword. It was the strangest thing. And after the course of that 9-week run of that festival, they came to me and they said, John, you have such a talent for this, for stage combat and for acting. We want to help you with your growth. And they gave me all their training for free. But I feel like that it was just a natural thing because like I'd done it before. So those are the really, so in essence, the majority of my memories are of the time of John of old, but that one Petra glimpse and then that just kind of knowing that Elizabethan thing. So I don't have any other memories other than that. Now there's a strange thing, and I've talked about this before. There's a strange thing that I am studying right now, and I'm trying to track it backwards. In the Bible, Peter's questioning Joshua about who's going to turn you in, who's the traitor, and Peter turns and he points at John and he says, "What of him?" And Joshua says, "If I want him to stay until you come, what's that to you? I'm talking to you." And then it says, right in the Bible, it says, from that point on, the disciples thought that John would not die. And then it says, but that's not what he said. He says, I want him to stay until he come. So I have often wondered whether John of old has just been reincarnating life after life and just staying here in the physical plane and not going back to the other side. So I started trying to do research on it. And I searched John the Beloved and reincarnation, and I found a book that was written about a man in New Jersey who was a performer, and he remembered the life of John the Beloved. His name was John, and he ended up moving to Ohio, and he died just before I was born. And there's a book written about him, and I found this antique book, and I read this. It was called I, John, and I'm reading this book, and I'm like, it's just amazing. I've tried to find the author, and the author is no longer alive, I don't think. But I think it's interesting to find someone who was named John, who has the life of John the Beloved as his memory just before I was born. I just find that utterly fascinating, especially since Edgar Cayce said John the Beloved would again be named John. And very recently, I found that passage again. And it's very, very interesting. When I first saw that passage, it was a time when I had all these psychics that just told me about my past life. And I was about to pay a lot of money to get my regression because I wanted somebody really credentialed. And so I paid the money for a real deal, hypnotherapist with all the letters behind their name. And one night I was having a crisis of faith, and I was like, oh, what am I doing? Am I crazy? Just give me a sign. And I opened up a book. I had a book there called Edgar Cayce on the Millennium. And I opened it up, and I'm just reading it just because I wanted to see what his predictions were for the millennium. And I'm reading it, and I get to page 32, and it says, John the Beloved will again be named John. Well, that was my big sign to say, okay, all right, I'll do it. So I wanted to have the regression. I hadn't looked at that book ever since, pretty much. And the other night, about a week ago, I saw that book on my shelf in my library, just picked it off the shelf, took it in the other room, set it down. Yeah, I figured I'll read it or something. I'll go through it. And I went through and I found that page. I read, John the Beloved will again be named John. And the next line hit me, and it was a line that I do not remember reading all those years ago. There the oneness of God is known. And I look at the goosebumps, right? Goosebumps. There the oneness of God is known. That's to me, that is the essence of the teaching, is we're all one with the source. We're all one with God. And being in that oneness of God, the communion of God, you understand that when the air you breathe is God, and the skin that's holding your consciousness in is God, and the wall and the person across from you. And Mother Teresa used to have a quote. They asked her what she does every day, and she said, "Every day I go out in the streets and I see Jesus in all of his distressing masks." So everyone she sees is Jesus. Well, so everyone I see is God, and because I'm one with God, I know they're one with God. I know that we're one, and so when I see somebody suffering or somebody struggling, I do my best to make them smile, or laugh, or come to a space of feeling that love or feeling someone cares, and to me, I'm doing it for not only for them but for me. I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for the oneness of God. And when I read that line the other day, it really hit me. It was like, I don't remember that line even being there. There the oneness of God is known. And it's what I live. It's what I live. Epic Kate, that's a great question. Do we have skills that carried over? That sword fighting thing for me, I think, was a skill from the past life. But I also think that we have the capacity to do anything. And to give you a quick story, I was many years ago. I was supposed to be going to Georgia Renaissance Festival, and I had an old, rusted-out Chevy van, and it had a great engine and transmission, but the body was shot. And my father had a Chevy van with a bad engine and transmission. So I bought the van from my father, and I pulled it into my driveway next to the other van, and I called my brother-in-law because I knew if I got my brother-in-law over there, I would stand there and hold a flashlight and hand him wrenches because I knew nothing about mechanics. I knew nothing about how to do anything to a car, but I figured if I can get him over there, we could do it together. My brother-in-law kind of caught on, and he says, "Get started and call me if you have a problem." So I took 2 pieces of plywood and I set it down next to the van on either side, and I started taking the first van apart. And every time I take a piece off, I'd take a piece of tape and I'd put a piece of tape on it, I'd write down where the part came from, and I would set it in order on these pieces of plywood with 1, 2, 3 numbering. So I would literally create a road map of what I did to untake this van apart. And then I took the other van apart, and I hooked onto the transmission with my brother-in-law's engine hoist, which he dropped off. And I pulled the engine and transmission out and threw it in the back of the van that was going to the dump. And then I pulled the engine and transmission out of the other one and came over, and I started putting it in. I realized that my van was an automatic transmission and his van was a 3-speed on the column. And so I ended up putting this engine and transmission in, and then I just started putting things back on in order that they came off. Well, then, because the transmissions were different, I now had to do also the steering column. So I ripped out the steering column. And then I did the same thing. As the pieces came off, the pieces went back on. One day, I backed away from the van after tightening the last bolt. And I realized that I completely swapped an engine, transmission, and steering column in these 2 vans. And not only did I do that, but I never called my brother-in-law. I was very proud. So I climbed up in that van, I stuck that key in that ignition, and I turned the key and nothing happened. So I did the shame walk, and I called my brother-in-law. I said, "Can you come help me?" So he comes down, he looks under the hood, and he's looking at this, and he's looking at that, and he's checking this out and checking that out. And suddenly he gets up in the van, and vroom, the van starts right up. I said, What did you do? You're magic. What did you do? He says, "John, you did everything great. You did everything exactly perfectly." He says, "But you have the only automatic transmission van in the country that you have to push the clutch pedal in to start." but I had done everything else perfectly. I just didn't take out the clutch pedal. So the interesting thing about it is prior to this, the only thing I'd ever done mechanically was change spark plugs, and I attempted to change my brakes, and my brother-in-law had to finish them. So the concept of things passing over from past lives, I absolutely think that the all knowledge is there. And I think some of the past life stuff is probably a little closer. And I think that the reason I was able to do that engine swap is because I just knew I was doing it. And I am doing this. Because I also had to leave in a week. So I needed that van running. But I am doing that. And I literally was out there, 12 hours a day, changing the engine and transmission. So I think a lot of our skills are based on the concept of knowing we can. But I do believe that if you've done it in past lives or you have tapped into a lifetime that had a skill like that, because like I said, I don't know what reincarnation really is, but I think that knowledge could be closer because you've had experience with it on a very personal level. So I hope that answers your question. Oh. Do you believe each have spirit guides who are with us from before we were born and who stay with us throughout our earthly lives? I don't. I do believe in the oneness of God. I do believe that more evolved people or consciousness within the oneness of God do communicate with us, and they communicate with us not only in our thoughts and our minds, but also physically. I've told the story before about being at a real estate convention in Florida, and this man kept looking at me, and came to a break, and I went to the restroom, and I came out of the restroom, and he was standing there looking at me. He says, "What have you learned, John?" I said, "Well, I think I could use some of this for my business." He says, No, I'm not talking about real estate. What have you learned?" And he and I ended up missing the whole rest of the conference because he was kind of going down my spiritual path with me, and he was kind of helping me discover what I believed. And I knew full well that man was there for me. And I knew that man was what some people would call an angel or a guide, but it was just someone who was part of the oneness, who was tapping in. And I don't think there's a structure of this guide is with you and that guide's with you. I think they're all with you. And I think that there are times in my life that I feel Jeshua. There are times in my life that I feel my mother. There are times in my life where I just feel something or something's around. And there have been people who've shown up in my life who have been there. One man showed up, and if you look at my channel, look up the word Griffin on my channel, you'll find the video on that. And it was a guy who saved me from being crushed by a tree falling from a tornado. And just by saying, "Don't park there, park there." And I think that was divinely guided. I think that the oneness protects us especially if we are choosing to do good things, and not being fear-based. Let me dive in. Have I ever felt overwhelmed from your past life memories? Absolutely, I felt overwhelmed. There's a couple of memories that I don't really tell that often because of the fact that they make me tear up. They make me cry. There's also that's just the memories themselves, but there's also I had a real emotional struggle when I was going through the process of the worthiness. I was raised Catholic, and all of this is supposed to be not accepted in the Catholic faith. Psychics and seers and past lives, and it's not a Catholic belief. My mom had her master's degree in liturgy, so I was raised to be the song says, "We're saved a wretch like me." So it had me believing that I was a wretch and I was unworthy, and so I had a real struggle with the whole memory. It wasn't even memory. There was when the psychics were telling me, I really started to feel like it was true. And after the first regression, I had a massive shift because in that regression, I had what most people would consider a near-death experience in the regression. He touched me on the chest, and I left my body. I left the whole experience, and I got a real understanding of the oneness of God. And when I came back into the physical reality, the important part was feeling my fears and my anxieties and my separation. It was that understanding of that. So after that regression, after I had that real visceral experience, I didn't have the anxieties really about it anymore. Of course, when you come out to the world and you say that you are a reincarnated apostle, people will come out of the world, out of everywhere, all corners of the world, to crucify you. And I've had horrible things said to me and about me, but I couldn't take it on because I understood that was just their fear. Their fear. I challenged their belief, and their belief had to be right. So this couldn't be something. So yes, I had a lot of dark nights prior to that regression, but once that regression happened, everything really changed dramatically for me. Thank you for that question. Happy Festivus. There you go. Time for the airing of the grievances. Whitebird, I love this talking about the people at the store. In our membership group, two of the members of the membership group said they started just going to the store in love, and they said it's amazing the difference between grocery shopping with the intention of being love as you do it. She says people will talk to you, and people will smile at you, and people will help you, and go out of their way to help you. And I said, yeah, it's because when you're loved, people want to be loved, and they want to be around unconditional love. And the more you can stay in that unconditional love, that experience around you, people will talk to you. People will, you'll laugh and you'll joke and you'll have a great time with people. It's pretty cool. What did you find fascinating, Teresa? I don't know which part of that you found fascinating. Same question as Bridget. Do we have a guide? I kind of answered that question already. I don't believe in the structure of guides. I believe you can tap into higher consciousness, but I don't think there is I am you're here to be your guide. I don't really think that's the way it works, but I don't know. If that's your belief and it feels right to you, then I'd say follow it, because there are many, many ways to find the source to God. The one thing I would say, though, is when you have the moment of speaking for yourself instead of getting answers from a guide, you step into your divinity at that point. You come to the place of I am this. I am creating this. And when I go back to when I started channeling a long time ago, I was channeling Gabriel, and it was a struggle. It was an interesting moment because he was coming through, and his voice was coming through, and his accent was coming through, and every time it would happen, I would feel that unconditional love, and then when it would end, I would drop back in my fears and I'd cry. And 3 months in, it started saying John I, and I've told this story before. I just want to say it again real quick. It started saying John I. Instead of referring to me in third person, it started referring to both of us as one. And then they asked why. I had a group who was asking questions, and they asked, why are you saying John I? And the answer was, because John doesn't feel worthy to be the deliverer of a message. John needed a personality to put faith in. And John I, is now becoming comfortable with allowing information to come through. And as he becomes more and more comfortable, there'll be less and less need for Gabriel. And what happened was, over the next 6 months, the accent went away, the character went away, and it was just my voice. That's why when you see my videos on the channel, I opened up and asked. People often ask me, who are you channeling? Who are you channeling? I believe I'm channeling the oneness. I believe I'm just opening into the source. Now, Edgar Cayce would call it reading the Akashic records. The all knowledge, all information. I just think it's opening up to the oneness of God and information coming through. And that's what was happening in those sessions. Gabriel went away, but Gabriel was only there because I personally needed Gabriel to be there as my guide, because I didn't feel worthy to have information coming directly to me. I hope that answers that question. Could you give a reading as a good psychic would? What do you mean by a good psychic? Number one, my private sessions, if you've ever had one, an hour before I do one, I sit down, I do a automatic writing, channel writing. And when we get into the sessions, the channel writing usually ends up being very profound. I've had some of the channel writings that have come through from people they loved would send messages through the channel writings, and so that happens. But really, my sessions are really about breaking people free of their own limitations and bringing them to their divinity and into their I am selves. So I'm bringing them to the I am moment, showing them that they can be there, and that's really what my sessions are. People, if you go to my website, at the bottom of the private sessions page, you'll see a list of testimonials and people's reactions to what I do. Have you met Jesus again after the regression? I feel his presence a lot. I will sometimes be talking to someone and I'll feel the feeling that I had when I met him on the beach. I know that that life is eternal, so I know he is always around. If you look at my channel very, very, very early on, one of the earliest videos is a video called "I Took a Picture of Jesus," and his face showed up in a photograph I took when I was in Norway. So he's always around, but it's not. Somebody asked me recently, actually, what's your relationship with him now? And what's your relationship with him and with Mary, Mother Mary now? And I'm like, it's not like a relationship. It's like we're just one. We literally are just in the oneness. And so to me, it's like having someone always there, if that makes any sense at all. Do I think Jeshua's hand was his way of asking you to do this? I'm not sure what that question is. You talking about the hand when he placed it on my chest? Let me know if that's what you're talking, and I'll jump over to this next one. Curious to know why he is called Jeshua instead of Yeshua. I thought J's didn't exist in those times. Actually, it's really interesting. The reason I say Jeshua is because I'm American, and in my regression, it didn't sound like a Y and it didn't sound like a J. It sounded like a combination of the two. It was Yeshua. It was a very soft J and a Y kind of mixed. Jeshua. And so being American, I leaned, and my name being John, of course, I leaned towards the J. And I didn't even know he was called Yeshua. And when I had my regression, I knew it was Jesus. And so to me, that was very... it was very interesting to see that. But I also know that the Hindus call him Isa. The Muslims call him Isa. So, I'm not really sure why they would say that. But anyway, where was I? Okay, Teresa, I love this. I seem to have no aptitudes. Great brain. Okay, so let's talk about this. That's a belief. When I changed the engine and transmission, I believed I could do anything. And by changing your belief, you change your outcome. So if you believe you do have the abilities, I can do anything, then you can. It's just a matter of doing it and doing it methodically. I took the pieces off and marked them down because it's just putting them back like a puzzle at that point. I get this question about 5D all the time. Do you think 5D is real? And will there be a separation of realities? Or are we going to 5P, whatever that is? I think all of that is New Age dogma. And I think there's as much New Age dogma as there is Old Age dogma. And I think those are just pathways that you go down. And as Joshua said, when you seek a path will be laid before you. But until you turn the path back to yourself, you never find the doorway. I look at the 5D thing very interestingly because I had a early on the first psychic who told me about my past life. The second reading I had with her, she channeled Jeshua, and that's where the name John of New comes from. The first thing he said was, "John of Old, John of New. I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. I'm with you. I've always been with you. I always will be with you." And so, John of Old, John of New, and I'm John of New because I'm John Davis. But the day after that experience, because in that experience she says, "Do you see me?" And I said, "No." She said, "Close your eyes and see." And I closed my eyes, and I had this memory of my face raising up from the sand, things falling off. I look up and there's his feet, and I look up further and he's standing over top of me laughing at me. But the day after that experience, I was sitting on the beach in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and the world looked two-dimensional, not five-dimensional. The world looked flat. The world looked like a collage that I could pick up. I could pick up the ocean and move it if I really wanted to. It really looked and felt that way. Like this illusion is exactly that. It's an illusion. And then when you really break it down to science, it's all just atoms in motion. It's just an energy event. And that energy event is the face of God. Or as the Bible says, you are created in God's image. And being created in God's image, the other promises we were made is that whatever you ask for, you will receive if you have faith. So whatever you believe, you're going to create. And you're going to start to see. But if you put your faith in a pathway, you're going to see a path. And that path is going to take you somewhere. And then it's going to keep taking you somewhere. But until you go, let go of the pathways and come back to yourself and realize, I am. When Moses climbed the mountain, he got up there, he says, "What's your," talk to the burning bush. He says, "Everyone wants to know your name. What's your name?" And the bush said, "I am." He didn't say, "I will be." He didn't say, "I am if you can find 5D. I am if you just," that's all New Age prophecy. But you want to hear what happens with New Age prophecy? In 1830, Minister Darby came up with a New Age prophecy. And he heard a dream of a Scottish boy, and he combined it with a couple passages from the Bible, and he came up with this thing called the rapture. It's not in the Bible. The rapture is not in the Bible, right? He came up with it's just a New Age dogma. But there's books called the Left Behind series. That's all about the rapture. Those stories are still being told. Those paths are still being trod. And this is a trip you have to unpack for, in my opinion. If you're going down these paths and it's a mental struggle, and it's like, how do I get to the next place? How do I get to the next place? That doesn't feel good. God talks to us in feelings, and the feeling is the good feeling. Be love, live love, and you'll have all the experiences, all of the experiences you want. And make your part of the world so bright that the world around you changes. You don't have to have this structure to live into or strive for that's always ahead of you. Because everything that you need is here and now. Your enlightenment is here and now. And I want you to think about the word enlightenment. Enlightenment can be a bright light, or it can be setting down your loads, setting down the path, setting down the dogma, setting down the crystals, setting down the rosary, setting down all of the things. Strip away. When I had my first Kundalini rising, I was in a tent with a man who had been trying to have a Kundalini rising through transcendental meditation for 25, 30 years. I sat in the tent and I said, I'm warming my body up. And I had one spontaneously without knowing any of his structure, without knowing any of his techniques or his path. In my life, I've been out of body, I've done astral travel, Kundalini rising. I've had just amazing. The manifestation stories I could tell you would blow your mind. But I don't have a structure. I don't have a belief. I don't have one of those things. I just know that I'm one with God, and God is this image around me, and the image is created by our belief. In the beginning is our word, and our word goes to God, and the word is God, right? Our words, our thoughts, our belief gets pressed into this energy, this atomic energy, and it is shown to us. And if you're looking always ahead for some structure that somebody's wrapped around it, which is what a religion is, somebody wrapping structure around something far more simple. In my regression, it literally says, it's so simple we have a hard time comprehending it. You're sitting in this moment and you say, I am tired, and you yawn. I am hungry, and your stomach growls. I can't find something, and you can't. When you finally say, I'm going to find that thing, you find it. It's that simple. Right here, right now, you create in every moment of every day. And it's a matter of not looking for the 5D or the next thing. I know I'm jumping. Sorry, I got it. You guys are like over here putting stuff up, and I'm just blabbing. I was going to ask you about your hopes and dreams for 2023. I realized God doesn't have a calendar or a clock. Yep. People used to ask me before 2012, my Mayan calendar was going to end. They're like, what's going to happen in 2012? What's going to happen in 2012? And I said, and I would look around and say, you guys want to know what's going to happen? They go, yeah. And I would start looking around and go, the Mayan calendar is going to end. But guess what? Last December, my other calendar ended too, and nothing happened. Right? When Y2K hit, remember Y2K? All the computers were supposed to shut down and the world was supposed to go dark. You know what I did on Y2K? I went to Key West and watched the conch drop. I went down. I don't have those fears and those anxieties. And I thought to myself, if something did go wrong, I want to be in Key West. Let me dive back over to see before I get too far down this line. Just be love and joy. Joshua said, think not upon tomorrow. It'll take care of itself. Right? What do I think happens after death? That's a very interesting question because I don't believe in death. I believe in eternal life. I've been out of body several times. And I know the body is not me. The body is a vehicle. And when we cross over, we have an experience where we go back into all knowledge, unconditional, pure love, and we have a realization of who we really are. And when you cross over, people have that near-death experience. They have the life review. That's just being folded back into the oneness, and you're experiencing the life that you just lived from all the perspectives of the people around you, because they say you feel how you treated people from their point of view. And so you're just collecting the oneness information from them as well. And so you're getting folded back into the oneness. So that's my belief. And that belief comes from the times I've crossed over, having the experience of crossing over, but also the near-death experiences and all the collaborative information about how that happens to a lot of people. I also believe that death is a transition, and the transition, you have to transition through your belief. So if you believe that you've been a bad person and you believe in the dogma of hell, you may experience a hell thing before you feel the love of God. Right? A lot of people come back and say, I saw hell, and they become more devout. There's other people who are Hindu and they see Shiva, and there's people who see Jesus. And there's people, and I say Jesus very specifically there because they see their religious Jesus. But you have to transition through that belief. And once you get past that, it's a very different experience. And understand, I say I crossed over. Anybody who's talking about near-death experiences, remember the first word is near. Nobody has a full understanding of what the other side is. Also realize that the biblical line, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me, right? Remember, it's the shadow of death. It's not really death, right? So that's my thought on that. So let me jump over here again. Is it effective to pray to Mary as well to Jesus? My question is, why would you? The question is, why would you? Because Joshua taught that he was the same as you. That'd be like praying to Uncle Bob, right? Or Brother Bill, or Sister Susan. You know, that would be praying to your brother or your mother, right? And the idea of Joshua's teaching is all about your divinity, about your direct connection with God. You don't need a middleman. Lee, that's a very astute. There's a lot of people who lean into their dogma so they can be right, because if they feel safer, they get into their velvet cage, but they don't realize all they have to do is open the door and they can fly. You know that you know that you know. Or as Popeye would say, I am's what I am's what I am's. Is it okay to stand up for yourself? Are you a bad Christian if you don't? Well, I don't necessarily know what a bad Christian is because I'm not a Christian, and I couldn't be a Christian because the word Christian is based upon a Christ or a Messiah or a Savior, and I don't believe in Messiahs or Saviors. I believe that you're one with God, and you are your own Messiah or Savior. And Joshua did not teach messianic belief. And actually, it's one of the reasons why he parted ways from the Essenes, is because they wanted him to be the Messiah that the Judaic sects were talking about, and he wouldn't do it. So I think you need to stand up for yourself. You have to love yourself equally. You know, the word ego means self-awareness, and you can be selfless and give all your awareness to others, or you can give all your awareness to self and to the exclusion of others. One is a narcissist and one is an empath. And the empathic people tend to give up themselves because they don't feel worthy usually. And so standing up for yourself is just loving yourself. And you're part of God, as are the people around you. And you have to love yourself equally, because there's no part of God that's not equal. So understand, no is a complete sentence. There's no need to justify or lean into it. And quite honestly, if you're loving and they can't handle you being loving, that's really their fear, not yours. And understand, the more loving you are, if they may either change or they may go away, and you got to be okay with their choice, because it is their choice. To make it more reachable to the human mind as an attempt to understand a big concept. That's exactly what it is. But the problem is they start to create rules and structures, and the rules and structures are pathways that are keeping them from their divinity. And that's the struggle. That's why I constantly say this is one trip you have to unpack for, because it literally is breaking away and coming back into the realization that you already are the creator. I am this. You know, I can't tell you how many people say, I am wanting, I am needing, I am hoping, I am trying, I am a victim of. That's just creating. You're just in the creative moment, creating the next moment in a negative way. And you could take this moment and, as Yeshua would say, be born again, set down your past, and start creating something loving, something new, something different, and watch your world change around you. Another manifestation story. So, did I tell the story about doing antique furniture? Did I tell that one? Let me know if I did that one, because that would be a good one to tell if I didn't. Let me know. Just say yes or no on the antique furniture story. If I have, I won't tell it. I'll come up with a different one. You are welcome about the sit and love. I think that was the most freeing thing for me, to realize that all of the techniques and all the pathways that I was going down were literally just paths, and they all led me to this place where I finally let go. So I just bypassed all the path and went to the end. Thank you, God. I am receiving a joyous life. Amen. Thank you, God, for the joyous life that Joseph is living, surrounded by people he loves and people who love him for who he is, having the purpose and desires to do the fun things that he enjoys. Amen. How's that feel, Joseph? How's that feel? Don't pray to God, give thanks. Believe, because when you give thanks, you believe you're receiving. I am that I am. Well, thank you, Moonbeam. That is absolutely very helpful. And thank you. These super chats actually do, really, honest to God, put a roof over my head. So when COVID hit, my other career went away, and I devoted myself to doing this full time. And I don't regret it. I do miss the money, though. I will. I'll tell you that. Popeye. You love this Popeye shirt? Well, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Love this stuff. Well, thank you, Teresa. You know what? I have not read Ruth Montgomery's stuff. I've heard of it, but I've not read her stuff. That's something I should put on my list. No one the antique. Okay, all right. So here, antique furniture story. So I had a hobby. My hobby was that I like to refinish antique furniture. And boy, the cinnamon's really starting to permeate through that. And I found this antique Victorian dresser, and it needed to be repaired. And it had the two posts that came up. It had the swivel mirror. And the only thing that was missing was those two little screw finials that held the mirror on. I was like, the screw finials are missing. So I said, thank you, God, for the screw finials I am receiving. Amen. And I let it go, because when I ask, I receive. And I just let it go, and I went on about my day. And I went to the Salvation Army, and I walked in and looking at their old furniture, and there was this little tiny rock maple desk that looked just like the perfect size for my son's room. And they only wanted $10 for it. So I gave them $10, threw it in the back of my truck, and I drove home. Got there, pulled it out, took it into the garage, set it next to that dresser. Started looking at it to see what I had to fix on it. I opened the drawer. In the drawer were the screw finials for the other one. So I hope that answers that question. To me, it was like I ask for things all the time. And a lot of times the way I ask is realizing the way I was asking. To give you an example, I was in a conversation with somebody one time, and I couldn't remember a certain actor's name. And I was like, oh, I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. And I realized I was saying I can't. And I turned and I said, no, I am remembering Sean Penn. And it came that fast. As soon as I shifted it to I am remembering Sean Penn, the name came out in the sentence as if it was always there. And it really comes down to just getting into the space of realizing you're the creator of every moment of every day, every inkling of your day. You are the pinpoint of creation. And a lot of times we create from our subconscious belief. But when you get really conscious about what you're creating and joyful about it and give yourself permission to see how it happens after the fact rather than looking for how it's going to happen before. Because even asking how before means you don't believe it's happening. So just ask, believe, and receive. In the Bible it says, when you pray, believe you will receive and you shall. Pretty clear to me. Popeye is the reason you love spinach. Popeye is the reason I have big giant forearms. Do angels help us when we ask them? Angels are ancient Jewish belief. And I believe angels are much like what I said about spirit guides. I think they're the same thing. I think it's the oneness and various people who are a little further down the path in the oneness who are coming back and helping or whatever. But I don't. It's that hierarchy of the archangels and the angels, and they're doing this and that. That's all a structure placed from a religion. And, okay, so Joseph, I feel tingles and vibrations from the great white North Canada. All right. The tingles and the vibration is the feeling of your outcome in the here and now. So every time you think about it, think about that feeling and manifest that feeling into your body, those tingles, because that means that's what you feel like when you have it. And the more you put that feeling into your present I am moment, with the anchor of this is what I'm receiving, that's how you get it. Realize you're already feeling the outcome when you feel those tingles. And tingles can be a funny word, and I like funny words. Things. You see it when you believe it. You see it when you believe it. You are so correct. How are we doing time-wise? Well, I think we're going to wind this down. So if you have one more question, I'll do that, and then I would like to ask you guys: should I do one next Friday, or should I not do one next Friday? Because it would be once again the day before New Year's Eve, rather than New Year's Eve. So just let me know if you think you'd like to do another one next Friday. And I would be there. And thank you guys for all the super chats. It really is. It helps me tremendously. I don't think you realize how much that really does help me. Wait, not next Friday. Yes, on next Friday. Yes, do another live on next Friday. You see it when you believe it. There you go. Quick question. Yes. Okay. Oh, people want one next Friday. Okay, so I'll put one up for next Friday. What's your quick question? Thank you so much for asking that question. YouTube takes 30% of any of your supers. 30%. So it literally is a big chunk. If you want to bypass that, and the look in my description box, there's a donation link there through PayPal, and that is I get much more of that. They only take $3 or whatever, or smaller percentage. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, but I see it. I see them as your generosity, and I see it as your love. So I don't focus on the negative aspect of them taking money out of it, but they're just running a business, and I get that. Well, hello, Jenny W. Sorry, we're about just now checking out. Oh, I had no idea about that. About the PayPal has the option. I didn't know that. It got my channel got monetized. Now let me tell you about monetization. My channel monetized. Honest to God, 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Thank you, Teresa. When it monetized, you have to get to 4,000 subscribers. Oh no, 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. And because of Kim Carey and those early interviews, I got to the markers fairly quick. I was so grateful. So now I'm almost 5,000 subscribers, and to be completely transparent, it makes me about $200 a month. My membership group makes me about $300 a month. So it's growing, and I know it's going to grow even bigger. I have a man who wants me to help him write a book and do a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of opportunities that are arising, but I just want to be very very open and let you guys know exactly. I don't want to in any way, shape, or form not be transparent about all of that, because I don't think it'd be fair to you or me. Yes, and hit the thumbs up button. It does help the channel. And here's another thing: if you know anybody who hits the dislike button, it helps my channel too. Number one, but if you know somebody who's done that, because every so often I get one, it's very rare I get them. Very rare I get them, and usually it's like one, right? But if you know somebody who does, tell them to tell us why. I would like to have that conversation. But most of them hit the dislike and stay silent. And I would love to have a conversation, because that's how we all learn, is to hear the why. Whew. So anyway, this has been lovely, guys. I'm so happy. Happy holidays. Happy, whatever holiday Festivus, that you celebrate. It's been very fun coming back and doing these again, and I'm looking forward to doing more. And I will see you guys next Friday. Have a great day. See ya.
Thank you for joining us at the Live Loving live stream. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and visit us at johnofnew.com.